The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday in the Riv. And a Friday before, very shortly, the election will be upon us. And we've got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Well, yeah,
today.
and, we also got the debate that occurred
Exactly.
the other night. And I'll tell you now, Coogan made it very clear, as he was lying consistently or misrepresenting information. For instance, he stated during that debate that Cliff Ponte invited the Mercs to the city council meeting for citizens input to put on a show. Just after, immediately after Paul said that, Stephanie Merck posted on the broadcast on Facebook that we were not invited, we decided to show up. So, I mean, it makes it very clear that, guess what? Maybe what the mayor's saying isn't always true. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that everything he says isn't true, but it seems to me that he's becoming pathological over the past few debates, and over the past few months, it's worse.
Yeah, well, we do know his M.O. I mean, his M.O. is to deal with semantics and pick out one word and point at the tree, not the forest, and a lot of half-truths and stuff, just like the letter of non-opposition. He called it a transfer, he called it, and I'm not sure if it's a transfer. It's still as an incumbent mayor, in my opinion, and I don't think it said transfer on that
No, it
letter.
doesn't say transfer on the
It doesn't
letter
say
at all.
transfer. But an incumbent mayor has to give permission. So, look, I'm going to be perfectly frank. I haven't really looked at the actual specifics, but apparently when you move locations, you need another letter of non-opposition for that area. And because otherwise, why would you even need a transfer order or anything?
That's why
you just carry it with you.
Right, but that's why we're saying that couldn't be a transfer letter.
That's right.
Once you get a letter of non-opposition, you have a letter of non-opposition.
Exactly.
So I firmly believe that this is a brand new cultivating facility or sales facility, whatever the case may be, and as such, he needed that letter of non-opposition. And Paul gave it to him because his family members gave plenty of money. They also gave plenty of money because they get a lot of contracts from the city. So they got to keep that gravy train rolling.
Yeah, well, look, regardless, and I won't use the old double negative that they use in Fall River, irregardless, which is without, but regardless of that, there was a letter of non-opposition signed by him while he was an incumbent mayor, because
Correct.
That's the requirement. It has to be signed by the mayor. So obviously, whatever the circumstance was that required them, or they decided to move, I guess his legal team said they needed another letter and another signature. And as mayor, he did sign it. So we can play the semantic game. We can play the word game and call it you can call it a transfer and what. You signed it.
That's it.
You said you never signed anything, and basically, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, and if it waddles like a duck, you can call it a turkey all you want, but it's probably a duck.
Probably.
So again, a half-truth, a deflection, it's the same stuff all the time. He kind of always spins. He's a spinologist. Well, I guess he really lost his vocation. He probably should have got into politics a lot earlier because he's really good at this stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he's really good at spinning. That's the mark of a good politician. They can stand up in front of a crowd and talk for an hour and say absolutely nothing. When you go back and look at the text of what they said, you know, because, you know, there's no record here, no real achievements. I mean, and again, he's running something for the children again. Well, you know, and that's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm big for helping the kids. But you're not in a school system anymore where you deal with kids. The people you're supposed to be dealing with are the kids' parents who have to pay all the taxes you continue to pile on and all the fees you continue to increase and all the ones you're looking at. And frankly, based on your record, I don't really believe your assurances that you're not going to go to the purple bags, that you're not going to go to the pickup fee per unit, that we're not going to get the debt override. And when we do get the debt override, it's not going to be what you personally said it was going to be when you were advocating for the debt override.
I agree. You know, I mean, why would Mary Sahadi say that? And now, why would Paul turn around and restrict his team, his administrative team, the chief financial officer, the city administrator? I mean, nobody could show up for a meeting. He's caused government to stop. This was his, you know, this is his political game. This is his political shenanigans. This is his political campaign rally.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, look, everything's a campaign rally. I mean, theoretically, if you want to spin words around, and, you know, I'm pretty good at that. You could say that what he did, half of the stuff he does is ceremonial. His famous word that you can't use when it comes to mayor. You know, when you're walking around handing out PPEs, when you have a whole city and a team to do that.
Cutting ribbons,
attending, marching in parades. Yeah. It's, you know, the reality is...
No, it wasn't a parade, it was a protest.
Well, whatever. A parade protest. It's a protest parade.
Because remember...
Like I said, it's all semantics.
Because remember, he
But the reality,
with the
look, the reality is a mayor, and that's the whole thing that really pisses me off about this whole thing. You know, he makes it like this mayor's like he's in there and he's doing everything. He's just, you got to be there 24/7. That's absolutely not true.
No.
That's why you've got department heads. That's why you've got an entire financial team. You're supposed to be out, and you hate to give Jazel any credit. He abused it, but where was Jazel? He was out and about trying to promote Fall River. Of course, he was staying in the Hiltons and spending a ton of taxpayer money.
At the Fontainebleau.
At the Fontainebleau in Florida. We know that. He abused it. He overspent. But he did what a mayor's supposed to do. He went out there and tried to bring businesses in, bring people in, put ideas out for Fall River. He didn't go there and say, oh, this job is so hard, I got to be in the office. It's overtime. I'm going to be in the office all the time. Doing what? Doing things that the department heads are supposed to do? We've got an entire city with people with six-figure salaries to run these damn departments. They're supposed to run themselves. And if they don't, they should be held accountable. A mayor's job is to set the course of the city and go out and be the face of the city, to promote the city, to promote its economy, to try to bring businesses in, to try to bring people in, to try to come up with ideas, to meet with departments and say, listen, I want ideas how we can do more for less money, how we can improve public safety, how we can do this. You're the department head, bring me ideas, and then it's your job to go out and let those people, because you know something? Apparently in a school department, they never had you guys study anything about supervising. I'm serious. I'm serious.
I don't doubt that.
I don't know if they still do it, because I took it back in the dinosaur era, but even when I took a lieutenant's exam, let alone a captain's and a chief's exam, one of the books you had to study was Effective Supervisory Practices. And in that book, it very clearly stated that good supervisors learn how to delegate authority. You don't do everything yourself. If you did, well, the hell with it, Paul. If you're doing all that, get rid of all the department heads. There's your deficit.
That's it.
Get rid of them all. Get rid of all the department heads, get all the assistant principals, throw them all out. Because apparently, your definition of the job is you do everything. You have to be there every single minute. And even when you're not there, you're there. So don't try to pile of BS, because, that's enough BS. If BS was bricks, you could build a chimney to the moon and have bricks left over.
What's interesting is, as you said, his statements make it sound like he is doing all the work. Yet he turns around and says he doesn't micromanage.
Yeah.
It's not his job to tell the police chief what to do.
Yeah.
It's not his job to tell the fire chief what to do. It's not his job to tell the DCM director what to do. Then what's your job? What's your job?
Well,
Either you do everything or you do nothing. In which case, if you do nothing, it's ceremonious.
well,
So
you're right.
It's going to be very interesting how he, and you'll notice he doesn't come back and respond to these accusations or statements.
Yeah, well, let's look back at the debate. He contradicts himself all the time. As you
Exactly.
said, I don't micromanage, but I do everything. And he also said about Mary Sahadi and not going down, well, she had no reason to go down. He didn't say that he prevented her from going down, because the last time I checked, it is the job of every department head in the city and the CFO, it's in their contract that they have to go before the city council and answer questions. So when the city council asked for her to come down, or the financial team or some designee, I'm sure she was willing to come down. She came out and said she was prohibited by the mayor from
Correct.
attending.
And
so there's another contradiction in the tangled web that he weaves.
And the mayor used a provision in the charter which says that for anyone from the administration to come down, they can only come down by resolution of the city council. That puts a screeching halt to anything in government, because it takes a whole meeting to get a resolution entered, then another meeting to get it to pass. So that means there'll be 2 meetings or a month before anything that the mayor proposes gets addressed.
And I'm not sure.
And that's the mayor's fault.
And I'm not sure if that's true, CJ. I'm not contesting there's an idiotic provision in that idiotic charter that hasn't gotten anything right since it was passed and should be repealed in its entirety. But remember, in many cases, collective bargaining agreements do supersede it. Mm-hmm. I remember, and I can't speak to it, I will be perfectly truthful. They're gonna, I'll have to look it up now because you brought it up, a very good point. It used to be in Connis's contract, Skeels' contract, all these people's contracts, that they were mandated to attend the city council meeting to answer questions. So you don't need a resolution. It's part of an agreement made and signed by the mayor.
And approved by the city council.
And approved in many cases. And maybe not the city council in the case of personnel directors because they're confidential employees and stuff. But signed by the mayor. He signs her contract, they pay her, or his contract. So Mary Sahadi, as far as I know, I used to see her at every council meeting.
Right.
I believe it's part of her contract, so there's no resolution really necessary. But again, there's Paul looking for a line somewhere that he can apply to let him push his agenda, which is to deflect, defend, and hide from telling the absolute truth.
Right. Well, I have something I want to talk to you about.
Oh, okay.
Chapter 41, Section 111F.
Yeah, the injured on duty clause.
Yeah, well, guess what?
Statute.
Guess what? We got documentation, Paul. You probably don't have it. The city is being sued again. And actually, the defendant is Chief Lynch. This is a very interesting complaint. I believe you've read it.
I did get a copy of it. Yet they sent it to me. I looked it over. I don't have to look over too much of it because I'm pretty familiar with 111F, obviously. That's probably the most important benefit that fire and police get. It allows them to get their full pay when they're injured in a line of duty. If it was through no fault of their own. I believe the statute says through no fault of their own. I can look it up on my phone.
No, it says it right here.
Yeah.
Section 111F. Whenever a police officer or firefighter of a city, town, or fire or water district is incapacitated for duty because of injury sustained in the performance of his duty without fault of his own, or a police officer or firefighter assigned to a special duty by his superior officer, whether or not he is paid for such special duty by the city or town, is so incapacitated because of injuries so sustained, he shall be
Yes.
granted leave without loss of pay for the period of his incapacity.
Yeah, and that is key. So from what I read, and let me say something to begin to preface this, I know that they've already lost a case on him misapplying this law a year or so ago. An individual, he removed him from IOD, and the reality is if you read the rest of the statute, and like I said, I don't know how many 111 cases that we had, but we never had a problem because obviously the chiefs at the time could understand a statute and read it because there's no gray area in that statute. The thing is that if you're injured in a line of duty, you have to be put on injured on duty status under 111F. But the other part of that statute says the only way you can be removed from that status is if either you get better and you get medical clearance to come back to full duty, or you retire from the injury. I believe the one they lost the last time, he took somebody off the status, IOD, and he couldn't because the guy was still injured. And of course, they lost. They had to pay the guy all his back. He had to get all the money, all kinds of paperwork because it's non-taxable money. But they've already lost that. I don't understand. These cases are normally slam dunk. And when I read about this, the firefighter was injured on duty, had 2 witnesses, was transported by a fire department ambulance to the hospital where they found an injury, and he still refused to put him on duty, on IOD. And there's no, to me, well, like I said, I'm not a court, but I don't know of very many 111 cases that get lost under these circumstances because I'm not sure if he's aware of it, and shame on him for not being aware of it. Even if this individual had an injury, a pre-existing condition, if he was back to full duty and working and then he injures that again, he can not only be on IOD, he can actually retire from that injury. Actually, we had 2 or 3 firefighters. I won't name them because I'm not sure of HEPA or whatever. But the fact is that when I was the president of the union, I had a couple guys that had knee surgeries. They were athletes. They hurt themselves. They had knee surgery previous. But they were okay. The knee got fixed enough so they could come back to work. They were working for whatever. Then they blew a knee out of the fire. But they blew it out so badly they couldn't come back to work. Guess what? They went on IOD, and ultimately the retirement went to the retirement board, to PERAC, and it was approved. Because this law, pre-existing conditions do not preclude somebody from being put on injured on duty as long as he was back to work and he was performing the full duties. And from what I read, this individual was at work, was performing his duties, and then an alarm came in and he got hurt. So, I mean, the fact that this has gotten this far is baffling to me.
Well, here's the interesting thing on this case. On count 13, or I should say paragraph 13, however, undisputed evidence of the plaintiff's duty-related injury, the defendant, Chief Lynch, informed Dr. Worthington's office that the Fall River Fire Department would not be responsible for the payment of the incurred medical bills for surgery. Such conduct has put in doubt the future of rescheduling of the plaintiff's surgery, as payment for same is now questionable.
Yeah.
Now, that's a violation of Section 100, if I'm not
Correct.
mistaken.
Yeah, correct. 111F is the injured on duty status regulation. Section 100 there's also another section that deals with retired firefighters and police injured on duty. But 100 is the part of that statute and that law that says that the city shall be responsible for all incurred medical expenses when a firefighter or a police officer is injured in the line of duty.
Right.
So, I mean, like I said, this law is about, and this law's been around forever. It preceded my tenure, and that was a long time ago when I got on. We had numerous firefighters injured in the line of duty in my almost 25 years as the president of the union. I've never seen anybody misapply or even attempt to not apply what this law states, because there's no gray area in this law. This law has been litigated. There's all kinds of case precedent and everything. It doesn't give you any room. It says if you're injured and you were doing it in the performance of your duty and you got proof, you shall be placed on that. And then in section 100, it says the city shall cover all medical expenses.
In paragraph 15, it mentions chapter 41, section 100, which provides that the medical expenses of a firefighter for an injury suffered in the course of his duty be paid for by the department. Quote, the defendant, Chief Lynch, has ignored this responsibility to the damage of the plaintiff. So again, the fire chief is ignoring what he's supposed to do. They're saying that the chief has willfully prevented the plaintiff from obtaining the medical surgical care he requires and is entitled to receive under the applicable law. An actual dispute has arisen between them. Now, what's interesting is here's what happened. On December 29th, the plaintiff reported for duty at his assigned station and was performing his usual house cleaning equipment checks and other station duties when at approximately 10:53, a box alarm was received for 276 Maple Street, Fall River. You can explain what a box alarm is in a second. Yeah. As the plaintiff went to his apparatus to put on his turnout gear and mount the truck, he felt something pop in his knee and he could not support his weight. The plaintiff immediately notified his company officer, Lieutenant, I'm not going to get into the name, who instructed the plaintiff to stay in his apparatus seat and not to move. Upon returning to the station from the alarm, Lieutenant notified acting district chief of the plaintiff's injury. District chief caused the fire department ambulance to transport the plaintiff from the fire station to Charlton Memorial Hospital, where x-rays were taken and other appropriate emergency care administered. The plaintiff's injury was witnessed by two co-workers, the previously referred lieutenant and a firefighter. Both co-workers submitted official witness statements to the department via intra-departmental communication forms. The lieutenant also filed a notice of injury with the Fall River Retirement Board as required for all line of duty injuries and listed himself and firefighter as witnesses to the injury. The plaintiff, pursuant to Article 52, injury on duty, of the collective bargaining agreement between the union and the city, also submitted the required report of injury. So, what's a box alarm?
But, yeah, well, there are two types. We still alarm and box alarm. Still alarm is when somebody telephones something in. You know, the house next door is on fire. A box alarm is when it's coming in from a panel. You know, like you have in the schools where you have pull stations and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So that alarm comes in over a third-party monitoring. So that's what a box alarm is. In the old days, they used to have the boxes on the corner of the streets.
You pull a little lever
you
down.
pull a little lever on the box and stuff. Or if you walk into hospitals and larger buildings, and you'll see a fire alarm panel. Well, with
all the blinking lights on it.
Yeah, with all the lights on it. So it's just a method that we get informed rather than somebody calling it up because the place is on fire. A smoke detector trips, or somebody pulls a pull station, or
I just wanted the people to know what a box alarm is.
But the key to this thing is it's the timeline and the scenario. Apparently, from my recollection, you know, there's not even a violation of the protocols. When you get injured, you have to file an injury report. It was. You have to have witnesses. There were. You have to file something with the retirement board. It was. So everything that is normal for protocol to document the fact that this was So I don't know what like I said, I'm just, I can't believe that he took it upon himself to just ignore the law for what, I don't know whether he went to medical school and he diagnosed it and said he wasn't injured. I don't know if he went into whatever hospital he went to and looked at the x-rays and he's made a medical decision. But even if he was, it's not his job. The job is that this guy's got documented reports from 2 individuals that witnessed the injury. And it's like, okay, I mean, I've never seen a clearer case. You know, we've had situations where, you know, there were no witnesses. A guy falls off the back of the truck. Nobody saw why he fell. But then people find him on the floor, and they have to say, well, we found him on the floor. But we actually had people that saw him. They sat him in the seat and told him, don't move, because he said he couldn't support his weight. And then he refuses to listen to the, you know, look at the law where it says you shall be placed. He doesn't have any option under the law. This is not a discretionary action that the chief can take, in my opinion. The law is really clear. If you're doing your job and through no fault of your own you're injured, you're entitled. And this, it took, when I'm looking at the dates, it's inconceivable to me how it took this long. Then he had to go to court, because this is one of the this is probably, well, at least in my opinion, the most important benefit that firefighters and police officers have. They're protected when they're injured in the line of duty, and they get all of their pay because of the hazards they face. And we had to fight hard to keep 111F, because they wanted to take fire and police out, put them in the regular workman's comp section where they'd only get a percentage of their pay. But we had to fight hard for a long time to keep that saying, listen, these guys are putting their life on the line, and you gotta treat them right. And how this wasn't in court 2 days, or wasn't it the city in the form of a grievance, within 2 days of his refusal, is just beyond me.
Yeah, it's a little, I mean, I think maybe part of it is because it was during the COVID crisis, December 29th, 2020. So we were still in that lockout of the courts, and there wasn't a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, but it should have at least been filed in the form of a grievance.
Right.
Then this should have been settled like the last one was. The last one last year that he lost on 111F did not go to court. It went to the city, and the city said, look at the law, it's clear. The guy had to get it. This should have, well, you're right. It probably could have taken a while to get this thing into the litigation phase. My point is, this should have never got to the litigation phase, because I would have been, if he would have refused and I would have been the president of the union, I would have been at city, I would have said, well, I'm going to City Hall right now and initiate this grievance today, because this is a very important grievance. There's no deals to be made on these grievances.
Yeah, it's, you know, but this is not something new for the Coogan administration. We've got lawsuits in the police department. We've got multiple lawsuits in the fire department. I mean, this isn't new for the Coogan administration.
Yeah, it's not Spindle City anymore. It's the lawsuit city.
It's litigation central.
Litigation city, yeah.
So it's very interesting. I mean, but, you know, for, you know, a firefighter to be disrespected in this fashion by a superior officer, and that superior officer being the chief of the fire department, I think there's a problem. And I think that will also create a morale problem amongst the other firefighters, because now they can turn around and say, well, if I get injured on duty, am I going to get my injured on duty pay? Am I going to get my injured on duty status? I mean, it's apparent here. So either this is a personal vendetta,
Good point.
It could be, or he just doesn't believe in paying 111F benefits. It is what it is at this point, I'll tell you now.
Yeah. And it's the second one in 2 years. There was one previously. So
exactly. That's
apparently he has difficulty interpreting 111F.
Yeah, well, I read that and it was pretty clear to me. I mean, shall, I mean,
Yeah.
that word shall is very explicit, so you can't hide it, that's for sure. Well, that's the time out for us, and I greatly appreciate you joining us. Have a wonderful weekend, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. See you on Monday.